You may or may not know that there are always two sides to a story. And I want to bring to the attention of Channel 4 and the Grenville victims that there are two sides to their story. And yes, there has been a great tragedy, but there's also another tragedy going on that to an extent they're responsible for, because we have 6,500 ex-soldiers who have served in Afghanistan and Iraq and elsewhere that have fought for the Muslims and others to set them free, and have also suffered mental disruption due to what they've suffered. They've been bombed, they've been maimed, they've had psychological disturbance, and they're actually out on the street, cold, wet, maybe haven't even got getting benefit, probably hungry. Now, while these men that have served their country willingly and have actually damaged their health willingly for the sake of others, and I know there's a dispute about, whether we should have gone into Afghanistan and Iraq, but the soldiers, have gone in to do what they felt was right. And some of them are even Muslim, I believe. Maybe not, I don't know. But the issue is that we're actually getting some of the Grenville victims demanding quite aggressively things from the taxpayer now, more beyond what they should. Because we had a Channel 4 News on two occasions. First of all, they had a social housing discussion group with the council and various others there. And we had a Muslim lady who's about 17, I think, a student. And she was saying that, she and her sister had to share a room, and then her brothers had to share a room, plus there was another child, and that this shouldn't be the case in Britain. Now, first of all, who gives anyone, be it a refugee or a Muslim or EU citizen or even a British citizen, the right to have as many children as they like, and the taxpayer has to uh, support them. And then it's a case, what is right in this other side of the story, as I mentioned, that people that have come over, be they refugees or EU citizens that happen to get pregnant and then get a property, because that's the way our system works, that haven't done anything for Britain and have just arrived here in the space of within a few days or maybe a year, they obtain a social housing property, which should rightly go to certainly the ex-soldiers first, and certainly to the British-born citizen first. But somehow our laws have been changed due to the EU rules and our EU membership. And this EU membership has now become onerous to us because now we have 3.2 million extra citizens that we now have to support, provide homes for if they happen to come with children, and even, like many of our own people, purposely get pregnant so that they can obtain a property. So I just asked Channel 4 News to consider this and also consider our soldiers out on the street. And also, I bring to your attention that there was another EU citizen, I think it was, she had an accent, and she had also had been in the Grenville fire, and she had a daughter that was 9 or 10, and a very eloquent lady. Now, obviously, this person seemed to be a single mother, so presumably she obtained this property because she was a single mother and needed a home, purposely or not, may have got pregnant. Anyway, where is the father? And no mention of him. And they have been offered a couple of properties, and they refused them, or one had been given to another because they wanted a basement or a lower floor flat on the first or second or third floor. Now, they were now asking for a balcony. They wanted a balcony. Now, that is extreme. They've been offered a beautiful brand new flat, probably costing the council far more than an ordinary council social housing property, which the taxpayer is paying for. And I think this is another issue that I think we have to stop, because it's a case that social housing, the Grenville victims and others, but the Grenville victims anyway, are demanding houses within the borough that they were in. Now, I think it's a case that if somebody is being supported by the taxpayer, not paying their own way, that they have no right to demand that they are housed in any area. If we are a private tenants, or we fund ourselves, we work and have to fund our own living, then sometimes things go badly and we have to downsize. We have to sell up and move out to another area that we don't like so much, for instance, or go from a 3-bedroom to a 1-bedroom or studio. So for somebody who's not paying their own way, that the taxpayer is paying for, to then demand that they stay within a fairly prime area of London, or even within London, I think is, in this day and age, not right. Particularly when we've got some of these, as they say, soldiers who've suffered equally as badly, that are out on the street because we are giving our properties to people who've just turned up here for a few days. I think we also need to change our laws, because I think it should be a case that social housing property should not go to people with just because they've got a child, because we're actually creating an underclass of people that just get pregnant just to get a property, even though they don't, and then they don't look after their children. They don't. They have free school meals, free breakfast, and they don't look after their children, and they end up on drugs, on alcohol, or and not even being fed properly or taught properly or parented properly, and in prison. So because they're not thinking of the child and whether they can afford them, they have them whether they can afford them or not. I've seen them with 2 or 3 or 4 children. They've never been off benefit. And we can't allow this to happen. What is the benefit to society for that? They are just a burden on society. And when you're working, you don't have children if you can't afford them. So, as I say, we're creating this underclass of society. So I think we have to change the laws that if you are between 18 and 25, you'll get benefit, to support you, maybe job seekers or similar, up and between 18 and 25 if you have no child. And you will only get benefits and possibly a house if you're 25 or above. And then perhaps only if you're in a civil partnership or a marriage, so that we can see there's a commitment to bringing those children up. Because we're not thinking of the children that are being brought into the world, because the parents don't look after them. Many of them end up in single parent families, no father, and this is why we're getting a lot of crime and a lot of children that end up in care and this sort of thing. And the other issue with regard to social housing, I think we should insist upon now, is that social housing priority, as well as what I've just mentioned about parents being 25 or plus before they get a home, social housing, is that priority is given to our key workers for social housing: teachers, doctors, prison officers, nurses, this sort of thing, because we need these key workers in the centre of our towns, particularly in London, and they can't afford it at the moment. So we need to change this, and also, rather than giving them a pay rise, which obviously the country is having difficulty, that they will be given a social housing instead, which is a lower rent and more security. So we need to change the laws on this, as well as the Channel 4 News and the Grenville victims need to consider the other side of the story, that while they complain about not having a balcony, not having a home in the area, being in a hotel room where they are warm and covered at least, that the ex-soldiers who have suffered as much or even more than they have are actually in the cold while they're in the warmth.